Hey everybody. Last year I made a video on how to set up the payment settings in your Printify account. And since then I've gotten lots of questions about the overall cash flow process of running a print on demand business. And in this video, instead of focusing on just one of the platforms, I'm going to walk through the whole cash flow process to hopefully answer all of those questions for you. We're going to cover everything that happens from the time a customer places an order until you get to keep the profit and all of the steps in between so that you can run your print on demand business successfully and know that you're set up correctly. This is going to apply to Etsy, but also to other print on demand platforms where you might be selling online, such as Amazon, or on your own site, like through a Shopify store. So stick around and let's walk through how cash flows in and out of your print on demand business. Okay, so the Etsy print on demand cash flow. We're going to first take a look at this as if it's a linear process. And in reality, it's not really. It kind of branches off a little bit there into step two that you have on the screen now. But the easiest way to understand this is just that there basically are four components here that happen every time you get an order from a customer on Etsy and the funds flow through to your seller account. And eventually you end up getting to keep profit. But it's really the steps in between that, especially if you're new to selling print on demand through a platform like Etsy, or maybe on your own site, like in a Shopify store on your own site, that you may have questions about how this process works because it's different than print on demand programs like the Merch by Amazon program or Redbubble or TeePublic. The way those programs work is that they manage everything. It's pretty much a hands-off program if you're the designer. They kind of treat you like you're an artist or a designer that contributes the designs or the graphics, and that's pretty much it. You can usually set your price or set a percentage commission or royalty, but if a customer orders something, you're not involved. You just get that commission or royalty for the product that they ordered and keep on uploading your designs. Running a print on demand business that you own through a marketplace like Etsy or Amazon Seller Central or on your own site is definitely different. And that's where the cash flow difference really comes into play because you're involved in the cash flow of getting that order, submitting it to fulfillment with your print on demand platform, and then having to sort of reconcile that revenue with your expenses to land on your profit, which is step four. So the first thing we're going to do is actually take a look at the accounts that are in play. So the Etsy seller account and then your accounts with either Printify or Printful. It works pretty much the same for all print on demand platforms or all the major ones, but we'll just take a look at what it looks like for Printify and Printful. But basically, the cash flow process involves these four steps: the customer placing an order, which generates revenue for your Etsy seller account, you paying for the order fulfillment with your print on demand platform of choice, receiving the payout from Etsy in your checking account that you've set up, and then ultimately reconciling that payout with your expenses to determine your final profit. As far as your Etsy seller account, there's a couple pages to be familiar with. Number one is in the finance section, and it's the first page, the payment account. So this is where you will see a summary of either an amount that you owe or an amount that's available for deposit, as well as a history of the most recent transactions. And in 2022, Etsy also added these sections here that give a little bit of a summary for your total sales, the fees that have been assessed against those sales, marketing fees, so that would be Etsy ads, as well as offsite ad fees, and then any shipping charges if you are fulfilling your own orders and buying shipping labels from Etsy. So at the top of the page, you've got your available for deposit balance that updates every day. The sales that you make in a given day don't immediately become available for deposit. They usually post to this balance here the next day after the sale. But when you're brand new and you first sync up your checking account, it will actually hold your funds for, I think it's 5 to 7 days before it becomes available for deposit. So that's when you're new. And also, I think if you change the checking account you have on file, they will hold those funds until that checking account is sort of verified, and then it updates with your available balance. The timing of when this pays out is a setting that you have control over, and we'll look at that in one second. But before we leave this page, when we scroll down to see our recent activities, this is where we can see information about each sale that we made and the different fees that were assessed against that sale. And so that's going to let us know, basically, we started with revenue coming from the sale and what was deducted from it. And of course, that feeds into the available balance for deposit. The current balance here at the top of this little section does include sales that were just made today. So that's where you can see the most current balance that you're going to have available. And if we just look at an example of this, I have at the very top of the list here an order that was for two t-shirts. And so you see the revenue here that came in was $41.03. Etsy breaks down all of these fees separately. So you actually see two 20-cent relisting fees. That's because it was for two shirts. So it was relisted twice. And so that's 40 cents of listing fees. There's a $3.13 deduction for sales tax. Etsy does separate this out. There's nothing we can do about that. Etsy collected the sales tax and you're never going to receive that because Etsy sends it to the state on your behalf. So that sales tax is something we don't control. And then there is the $1.48 processing fee. That's for processing the payment, as well as two transaction fees, one for each shirt, $1.23 on each. And that's got the updated amount because it's after April 11th of 2022. It's 6.5% now. It used to be 5%. You can also monitor this transaction level information with software like QuickBooks, which does have an integration with Etsy. And that's what I use to monitor all of my transactions, because it automatically totals up my revenue and my expenses and all of that. All right, so I mentioned a setting that you can change about how often that available balance is paid out to your checking account. That's under Finances and under Payment Settings. Your Payment Methods tab is where you can change this payout cadence, and mine is currently set to pay out once per week. I like the weekly method because it allows me to usually have a balance in my account just in case I need to give a refund for an order or something like that. I've got funds usually sitting there in my Etsy account, but it still pays me out frequently enough that whenever my business credit card bill is due, I always am, about to get a payout within a few days from Etsy. So I definitely make sure I can cover that type of expense when it comes up. But you can certainly change this if you want. You can get paid out as frequently as every day. You can do every 2 weeks, so twice a month, or you can do once a month. So they have 4 options for you to choose from there. The bank details should be there because they ask you for this account when you open your Etsy shop and you initially set it up. But if you need to change the bank details to receive your Etsy funds, you can do it here by clicking on Update, and then it'll go through a verification process for your new bank. Now, if you're using Printify to fulfill your orders, you have some payment settings here. I actually have a separate video that I did only about the payment settings for your Printify account. So I'll put a link to that in the top right corner, and I'll cover it a little bit more quickly here. So in Printify, if you click on your little profile icon and come down to payments, that's where these settings are. And Printify as well as Printful both offer you the ability to use a credit card or debit card that you keep on file with them, and then every individual order is charged. Or you can actually load a balance into your account using PayPal. And of course, if you do that, you still need, a source for that money. So you're going to use probably a credit card or debit card in combination with PayPal or possibly a checking account to initiate that transaction and load some balance into your Printify account. Occasionally I do that if, say, I maybe have a Visa gift card or something that I'm trying to get rid of. PayPal actually allows you to use those types of things to fund a transaction. So sometimes I load a balance in there because I have something like that. But I also have one of my business credit cards saved to Printify in case my balance runs out, and then it just automatically charges each order. You do have to have some type of funding available in order to pay for your order fulfillment. That's one of the few things you cannot do for free when it comes to print on demand. There's a lot you can do for free without monthly fees and things like that, but you do have to pay for your order fulfillment costs upfront. Now on Printful, it's very similar, but they break this out into a couple separate pages. You've got under the billing option in your account, you've got several pages here to look at, but the billing methods is where you would store a credit card on file if you want to go that route, credit card or debit card. And they actually let you store, I think it's up to 4 different cards, and select which one you want to be primary, so you can keep multiple in there. And then on the separate page, there is the Printful wallet, and that is what they call your account balance. So they have a special name for it at Printful. And if you scroll down on that page, you will have a US dollar wallet if you're in the United States. If you're in another country with a different currency, there's all of these different wallets. They keep them separate for the different currencies, but you can select any of them and add currency into your wallet to be used to fulfill your orders, just like you can with Printify. And the way that this works, if you click on the wallet, you get the option to add money. You can also withdraw on both platforms in case you add too much and decide you need to pull some of that money back out. But after you add an amount here, we'll say we're going to add $100. It shows you your existing on file payment methods. And if you add a new method, that is where PayPal is one of the options. So you can use PayPal to add funds to either Printful or Printify. What do I recommend in this space? Well, it really is up to you. It depends on what's right for you in terms of the method you use. Maybe you don't have a credit card or you're not planning on getting a credit card. In that case, maybe you want to use PayPal to fund your account. There are a few different ways you can do it. If you're sticking with a print on demand business for the long run, I strongly recommend you take a look at small business credit cards and small business checking accounts to serve as a way to keep your finances separate from all of your personal finances. I'll put a link down in the description of this video to a couple pages on NerdWallet's website. They're a great resource where, they have some lists of like the top business credit cards, the top business checking accounts, and they update it periodically. I recommend, of course, you do, a good amount of your own research, but NerdWallet is a great starting point to get some ideas for different types of accounts to look at. So those are things that I encourage you to consider if you're sticking with your print-on-demand business for the long term. But you can certainly use any method that you have to fund your accounts with Printify or Printful. All right, so let's just consider two examples of how this cash flow will really work. One using a checking account with a debit card, and one using a credit card and a checking account. So you, of course, are required to have a checking account on file with Etsy so that they can send you your funds, your revenue from your orders. And then let's say that you used a debit card that's associated with that same checking account to actually pay for the fulfillment costs. So what would happen in this example is your orders are coming in on Etsy. The revenue from those orders is going into your Etsy seller account. And then at the cadence that you specify, Etsy is paying out that revenue into your checking account that you've got on file with them. But in the meantime, you had to pay for that order to be fulfilled, or those orders to be fulfilled with either Printify, Printful, or whoever your platform is. And so in this example, you could use the debit card from that checking account to be the payment method. So basically, this becomes a cycle where money's coming in, going into your checking account. Some of that money is going back out because it's paying for the fulfillment costs of your orders, and you end up having a residual balance because your profit is not leaving the checking account as the new orders come in. So your balance should be building up over time with your profit unless you're withdrawing it to a separate account. So a couple considerations, about having a setup like this where you're not using a credit card at all. When you're new and you're establishing this sort of cycle using a checking account and a debit card, there is startup money required in the checking account because the first orders that you're receiving in your first couple of months, of course, need to be fulfilled, but you're not going to have a balance sitting there of built up profits to pay for those orders. And since it's a debit card, the funds need to be available immediately, which means you need to put some starter money, some seed money into this checking account in order to have funds available for that debit card to pay for the order fulfillment. So that's one thing to consider. A credit card's not required, so that can be a bonus for some people. If you don't have a credit card or if you're just not planning to get a credit card, this can help you with that. If you've already got a checking account with a debit card, or if you want to open up a separate one, you can certainly do this without a credit card, and that's a bonus for some people. And of course, you can get, if you don't have one already, you can get a checking account that earns interest. I mentioned a second ago, there are business checking accounts that are like online only type of accounts, like Bluevine or American Express Business Checking. And they're great no fee accounts, but they do pay an interest rate. So you can still get some return out of a setup like this, even though you don't have a credit card. So example two would be involving both a checking account and a credit card. So this one is a very similar setup. It just works a little bit differently in terms of how you reconcile your revenue with your expenses and ultimately get to that profit that you keep. So we still have orders coming in. We still have the revenue from those orders going into your Etsy seller account. And we still have Etsy giving you that payout of that revenue into the checking account that's associated with your Etsy seller account. So that's all the same as with that other setup. You still need a checking account for Etsy to send that money to. But what's different about this example is that instead of that money going into a checking account, which you're using the debit card for to pay for your orders, so kind of like making a cycle there, we're using a credit card basically off to the side. We're using a separate credit card, a different type of account to pay for the order fulfillment. And so what that means is it's not like this self repeating cycle, because you're going to get a credit card bill, a statement every month, and you have to pay that bill using the funds from your checking account where those Etsy funds are going. I'm sure that's very obvious, but just wanted to point out the difference between these two kind of cash flow setups that you can use for print on demand. And the considerations or the differences here: no startup money is required. So if you have a credit card that you can use, or if you plan on getting a business credit card to use this type of a cash flow setup, you don't need to have starter money in that checking account, because credit cards allow you to make charges and then pay the balance off later. An additional little kind of perk or benefit, and one of the reasons why this is the cash flow setup that I use for my print on demand business, is it also opens up the opportunity to earn credit card rewards. So whether you're using a personal credit card that earns rewards or a business credit card, again, I recommend you consider a business credit card, but you can get really good cashback rewards, business credit cards these days, and that goes straight back to your bottom line because it reduces the expense that you're paying to fulfill your orders. And of course, that checking account that we're using for the Etsy payouts, you can still get an interest-bearing checking account. So now we're earning like two types of additional return on our business revenue that's coming in, because that revenue is sitting in the checking account waiting to pay the credit card bill, and it's earning interest while it's sitting there waiting, which is great. And at the same time, I'm earning some cash back from my business credit card. So there's two ways that I'm getting some extra boost to my business profits. So that's it. That's the 4 steps of the Etsy print on demand cash flow in a nutshell, and a couple of examples of how you can set up that cash flow using a checking account with a debit card or a checking account with a credit card. So I hope this answers some of the questions that I didn't answer in my original video, where I just covered setting up your Printify payment settings. And if it didn't help answer the questions you had about the print on demand cash flow process, let me know in the comments. Let me know if it did help. Let me know if it didn't help. Let me know if you still have questions about this. If it did help you, do me a favor and hit that like button on the video. It helps YouTube recognize that this information is worth showing to other people. And if you haven't subscribed to POD Insights, you may want to subscribe, because we have some really good videos coming up in the next couple of months. I'm going to be doing some review videos of additional products from Printify. I'm also going to be doing a video in the coming weeks about getting started in print on demand completely for free. And also check out podinsights.net for a full list of resources that I recommend to all print on demand sellers, as well as a blog with all of our podcast episodes and transcripts in case you like to hear or read about print on demand information as well as watching videos. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you next time.